Hello, and welcome to my world. Well, if you're like me and you've been paying close attention to the RC monster truck world, the big news as of this filming is that Tamiya announced a couple days ago that they are reintroducing or re-releasing the Clod Buster. So not the Super Clod Buster, not the Clod Buster Black Edition, the Clod Buster Gray Edition, the Clod Buster Chrome Metallic Special. No, none of those. They are re-releasing the original Clod Buster, and it's going to look a little bit different. It's got a different grille on it. It doesn't have the Chevrolet badging on it, but the body is molded in red styrene, which is cool, especially for people like me that are really bad body painters. And also it includes an electronic speed controller too, so no more mechanical speed controller like the original Clod Buster had. But the good news is that Clem Clubfoot is back in action. So if you're like me, that just makes me so happy to know that there's a whole new generation of future Clodbuster fans that can finally get a brand new kit on their hobby shop shelves. So when I saw that news, it kind of made me think a little bit about my history with the Tamiya Clod Buster. So in this video, I'll be talking about how I got started in the world of RC a little bit, and how that led to my almost now lifelong obsession with the Tamiya Clod Buster. And it all started with what you see here. This is the body off of my first Clod Buster, and I'll talk about how this body came to be and why it looks the way it does. But first, let me talk a little bit about quickly talk about my history in RC. So the Clod Buster was not the first hobby grade RC vehicle that I ever had. When I got started in hobby grade RC, there were no monster trucks available. Actually, that's how long ago it was. So in 1983, it was around 83 or 84, I think it was late 83. That's right, it was Christmas of 83, I believe, is when I got my first hobby grade RC vehicle, which was a Tamiya Frog. And I put that together, had a great time with it, and started really getting into RC, becoming obsessed with it. And later on, I bought a Kyosho Optima because I wanted a four-wheel drive buggy. And right around that time is when RC monster trucks first came out. The very first one I ever saw was a Mari Big Bear, which is credited with being the very first RC monster truck. And I fell in love with it. Thought it was really cool. The one thing I just did not like, and why I did not buy it, is that Mari was not as well known as Tamiya at the time, and also the real deal killer for me getting a Big Bear was that it was only 1/12 scale. So that's why I kind of just kept an eye on it, but never really considered buying one. Now if you see the price of Mari Big Bears today on the collector market, yeah, I'm kind of kicking myself for not getting one, but I can't really. I'm not too unhappy about that because the truck I did get instead was pretty good. But I really wanted a monster truck. Monster trucks were really starting to take over my life. They were on TV. I started putting monster truck posters on my wall as a kid, and I really wanted to get an RC version. And later on, the only RC monster truck that I really fell in love with was way out of my budget, and that was the Tamiya Bruiser. That came out, I think, in 1985, and I remember my hobby shop had one sitting on the shelf in the box, and I remember just drooling over it, but it was just way too expensive for me. So that all changed, though, in 1986, when Tamiya released the Blackfoot. And that was the truck that I bought as my first ever monster truck. And it was a good one to get to because it was within my budget since it was only two-wheel drive. And also it was based on the ORV chassis, which I was already familiar with because I had my Frog. So I had the Blackfoot. I got it when it first debuted in 1986 and drove it, destroyed the rear driveline many times. The rear driveline on the Blackfoot was not good. It was very weak, just like on the Frog. So imagine that. You take the weak driveline of the Frog, and then you bolt on bigger tires that the Blackfoot had, and just imagine, yeah, the rear driveline just self-destructed even faster in the Blackfoot than it did on my Frog. But it was fun. I really enjoyed it, but I began to realize that two-wheel drive trucks just weren't for me. The Blackfoot was fast, it was agile, it was fun to jump and things like that, but the two-wheel drive drivetrain just didn't do it for me. Didn't do the truck pulling and all the high-powered climbing and stuff like that that I saw the full-scale monster trucks doing on TV. So, once again, my whole world changed, and everything changed in 1987 when Tamiya released the Clod Buster. And as soon as I saw that it was a magazine ad for America's Hobby Center, a huge hobby shop in New York. It's no longer in business, but they used to run these huge ads in model railroading magazines and also in RC car magazines. And that was the first time I ever saw the Clod Buster, was in one of their ads. And I instantly fell in love with it. Four-wheel drive, scale 66-inch tall tires, dual motors, four-wheel steering, Chevy pickup truck body on it. It was everything that I saw on TV, the full-scale monster trucks like USA 1 and Samson, but it was an RC format. And unlike the Big Bear, it was a full 1/10 scale. So as soon as I saw the Clod Buster come up in the America's Hobby Center ad, I put my Blackfoot up for sale, and I sold it pretty quickly, and I put all that money towards a brand new Clod Buster, which I did mail order from America's Hobby Center. And that Clod Buster, I left it fairly stock. When I put it together, I did put in a full ball bearing kit as I was putting it together, but it still had the mechanical speed controller, still had the non-oil filled shocks, still had the lousy steering system, but I absolutely loved the truck. Fell in love with it, drove it all the time, and this was the body that it had. And I dug this up just the other day. It was at my parents' house, buried in storage, and I was just digging through trying to find some other stuff, and I stumbled across this. And this is a original 1987 era Clod Buster Chevy square body. And if you have watched any of my other videos, you know I am the world's worst body painter, so that's why this body has never been painted. It's the plain white styrene that it was originally molded in when it left the Tamiya factory. But it's white, but one of the trucks that I really liked when I was a kid back then was the Skoal Bandit monster truck, which was owned by Seth Doulton. And the original Skoal Bandit was based on a 58 Chevy Cameo Carrier truck, which of course the Clawbuster body you see here is not. The Clawbuster is based on an 85 to 87 Chevy short bed truck with the custom deluxe package on it. So completely different era of Chevy truck compared to the Skoal Bandit. But the Skoal Bandit was white, so I didn't have to paint the Clawbuster body here, as you see, and all I had to do was buy some of these decals here, the Skoal Bandit ones here, which were made by this company there, Autographics. And I don't think Autographics is in business anymore, but they used to make a whole bunch of decal sets, and they made a lot of decals for NASCAR stock cars. And Skoal Bandit was a major sponsor of one of the NASCAR race teams. I can't remember which team it was, but Autographics made this really nice set of decals for that NASCAR stock car team. And I bought the decals at my local hobby shop, and didn't have to paint the logo, just cut it out and stick it on the doors of my Clawbuster body, and thus I had my version of Seth Doulton's Skoal Bandit monster truck. Now this body is not in mint condition, but it is one of the original ones. So as you can see there, it's got the Chevy bow tie logo on the front grille, and I would have used this grille on Leviathan, but it's in pretty bad shape. It's got some scratches and nicks on it in the chrome, so that's why I didn't use it for Leviathan. But, you know, I actually drove this truck, and I actually thrashed on this body quite a bit. So back then in 1987, I had no idea the price that people would pay for these Chevy bow tie grills. If I had known, I would have locked it away and stored it for almost 40 years. But who knew back then that these things would be collectible? And also, oh, you can see here, also it has one of those old Tamiya incandescent light bulb kits inside the headlight, so this body does have operating headlights in it. And that's the original US flag decal from the Clodbuster decals, the original decal set, and a couple of Skoal Bandit decals on the hood, just because I had them from the sticker sheet. These are also the original KC Daylighter decals from the Clawbuster kit, and yes, if you notice on this body, there's a lot of scratches here on the blower hood scoop there. It's a bunch of paint on there. Back in those days when you rolled your Clodbuster over, same thing on the lights here, when you rolled your Clodbuster over, scratched up everything. We did not have those fancy chrome paint pens like they have nowadays. In those days, you just got some silver paint and a paintbrush, model paint, and just painted over the scratches. So that's what I did here. Also, I broke off a couple of these lights. I think the two on the ends, of course. Everybody broke these things off. I broke off two on the ends, and I just didn't have the money to buy a whole new parts tree for the lights alone, so I just glued them back on with super glue, and the super glue is still there to this day. But hey, they're holding on strong here. They're not falling off, so quick, easy fix. So here's the other side. It's the exact same decals on the other side. Also has the 4x4x4 stickers. Those are also from the original Clodbuster decal sheet. These Chevrolet ones, I'm not sure where I got those from. Probably made by Autographics, I'm assuming, but I don't know exactly what sticker sheet I got those from. But on the back, if I swing it around here, also there's another Skoal Bandit decal on the back window. And on the back here, there is an ESP twin tube bumper. I did have the money for some ESP bumpers on this truck. And also, if you notice the slogan on the tailgate, if you can't stop, smile as you go under. Yes, that's the same slogan that is on the back tailgate of Leviathan. This was the first truck I ever had where I actually put that slogan on the back. And if you watch my video on Leviathan, that slogan came from a song originally. I didn't know it, but you used to see that. If you can't stop, smile as you go under, you would see that on the back of a lot of lifted trucks, I remember, back when I was a kid in the 1980s. You don't see it too much anymore, but it was, I wouldn't say it was common back then, but I definitely did see it on a lot of trucks around town, and also a lot of the trucks in off-road magazines. And if you notice, I was not good at the spacing of the letters. If you notice, the gaps are not even, so on Leviathan I made sure to take care of that, and I spaced out everything perfectly even. But this truck also has the Chevrolet writing on the tailgate right there. So that disappeared pretty quickly in the Clawbuster's history. The new re-release Clawbuster does not have that. No Chevrolet on the tailgate, and does not have the bow tie on the front grille. So who knew? Once again, there's a bunch of scratches, nicks, and dings from when I rolled over this truck right along here on the tailgate, and scratches everywhere on it. So who knew the price that people were willing to pay for these tailgates today, 40 years later? I sure didn't know back then, so that's why I thrashed on this thing. But now the question is, what do I do with this thing? I was not expecting to find it here. It's not cracked. It's never been painted, as I said. There's no chips in it or anything. It's just got some scratches on it. There's scratches on the top of the roof here and stuff for me rolling it over. But I don't know what to do with this. But one thing I'm going to do with it right now is I'm going to mount it on one of my truck's chassis. So the question is, which chassis should I mount it on? Stay tuned in this video, and I will reveal which chassis I'm going to mount this body on. Before I show you what chassis I mounted the body on, I thought I'd go back in time. So welcome to 1987. And these are some pictures of my Tamiya Clod Buster right after I put it together for the first time. And as you can see in the photos, that is the exact same body that I am showing in the video. So it's been a long time, but the body is exactly the same. I've changed a lot since 1987, but the body that you see right there is pretty much the same. And if you look at these pictures, you will see that it's a bone stock Clodbuster chassis with the non-oil filled shock absorbers on it, and those shocks are wrapped with some plastic from some grocery bags. I used to do that when I was a kid. I'd wrap the shocks in plastic, clear plastic bags, so that way none of the dirt would stick to the grease on the shock shafts and make it a gooey mess. But this truck, as you see in the photos, all it had in it was a ball bearing kit and nothing else. Still had the bone stock electronics and everything in there. No chassis modifications whatsoever at that time. And later on, I did add a ESP suspension lift kit and chassis brace and some ESP twin tube bumpers and twin tube lower bumpers. And you can see the rear bumper from ESP on the body in the video. But at the time I took these photos, the truck was pretty much bone stock. So that's enough for going back in the Wayback Machine. So now we're going to go forward and look at what chassis I decided to mount the body onto. Here we are to today. And if you know how much I love the ESP King Clawd, it should come as no surprise that that was the chassis that I decided to mount this body on. And I think it looks pretty good, actually. Kind of reminds me of my old truck, plus the ESP King Clawd chassis on there. So it's amazing how much just changing the color and decals on a body, how much it changes the overall look of a truck. I'm not used to seeing the King Clawd without a red paint job on it on the body, so this is pretty neat. Kind of takes me back to when I was a kid. And this is what I wanted to build 40 years ago. Well, almost 40 years ago now, because I first got my Clodbuster in 1987, and as I film this, it's 2026, so not quite 40 years, but we'll round up, so call it 40 years. And this is what I wanted to build after I saw that image on the cover of my ESP catalog that I got in the mail. Wanted to create that, and finally, here we are today. Almost 40 years later, I have the truck of my dreams right here. So it looks a little strange if you're used to seeing the King Clawd with the red Chevy truck body on it, but kind of reminds me of when I was a kid again. And I provided some pictures of what my Clodbuster used to look like when it was fairly stock. In those photos, all it had was a ball bearing kit and the front headlight kit on it. And I did not even have the ESP twin tube bumpers on it at that time. So that was very early on. I believe I took those pictures maybe a month or two after I finished putting my first Clodbuster together. And the spirit of that Clodbuster still lives on today, actually, because that truck you saw in those photos is what my ESP Clodzilla 4 Gravedigger truck eventually morphed into. So I still have that truck to this day, kind of, although there's hardly any parts remaining from that truck that you saw in the photos. But the spirit of that truck lives on to this day. Now, what I'm going to do with this body in the long run, I have no idea. It's in such bad shape, it's scratched and dinged up. It is not cracked or chipped or anything like that, but I don't know what I'm going to do with this thing. May just put it back in storage again. I have no idea. I kind of thought of getting a new Clodbuster re-release kit and putting this body on the chassis. So that idea kind of floated across my mind last night. So hey, maybe not a bad idea. I don't know. We'll see. But it looks pretty cool on this chassis, actually. But I will not be leaving this on here permanently. So I'm going to go swap back on the original ESP King Clawd body back onto this chassis as soon as this video is over. But I just wanted to show you what my dream truck 40 years ago, what it looked like if I ever finally got around to winning the lottery and building the truck of my dreams back then. This is pretty much what it would look like today. So I hope you enjoyed this little step back in time to my history with the Tamiya Clod Buster. And by the way, I also, speaking of that, I have no regrets whatsoever with selling my Blackfoot to pay for my first Clod Buster, and I have absolutely zero regrets about that. And here we are, I'm still into Clod Busters to this day, and I really have not had any desire to get a Blackfoot or any other two-wheel drive monster truck for that matter. I learned way back then that for me, a monster truck just has to be, bare minimum, has to be four-wheel drive. And not I'm not going to say anything bad about two-wheel drive trucks. There's a lot of people that love them, and they're a great way to get into the fun hobby of RC monster trucks since they're much cheaper than the four-wheel drive versions. But as I found out way back when, and I still, to this day, I still feel the same way. Just two-wheel drive trucks are just not for me. My monster trucks have all got to be four-wheel drive, bare minimum. So I have no regrets about buying my first Clodbuster, and that's still true to this day. Still love them. Always will. So I hope that you enjoyed this little step back in time in this video, and I'll catch you in the next video.